Working, right? Morning, everybody. I appreciate you coming in to Spiritual Warfare Unit, the Warrior's Way, in association with UCAN, United Community Addiction Network, working with those in the community that are struggling with addictions. I'm here with two friends of mine. If you can introduce yourself. Bob, go ahead.
I'm Bob McKamie.
And I'm Michael McCarty.
All right. And Bob, we got to meet originally actually over a fish tank at filling that thing up early in the morning for Soberfest one year.
Yeah, you were a giver way back then at the Soberfest.
Yeah, those are some long days, brother.
We were struggling to find people to come out and help at the fish pond at the Soberfest. It's probably been 5-6 years ago now, and you jumped right in and got your hands dirty and your feet wet and made a lot of kids happy that day, just like you're making the adults happy now.
Yeah, both of those things happened. So we got to meet, and we'll get into what Soberfest is in a little while. And Bob and Mike are big AA guys going all the way back to some old stuff, and we're going to get in their story. So, Bob, tell the people where you're from, what area you're from, and what you did, where you went to school growing up and all that.
I grew up in the Flint area. I went to Flint Southwestern, graduated in 1975. Was kind of a, I wouldn't say withdrawn kid, but a very shy kid in some respects. I had my own little circle of friends that I was good friends with, and I still hold a lot of those people as good friends today. Mm-hmm. And had glasses from a young age and had pretty low self-esteem about it, and then as I got older, the self-esteem got better. But I think I had a great childhood. I had great parents, good family life. All my problems were because I was a volunteer, not a victim, and not because of any undue hardship on me as a kid. I won't put it off on anybody else but me. When I was a kid, I liked to go fishing. I liked to go learn to hunt from a young age. Okay. Had a little BB gun we went out and shot. And
there you go.
Just had a pretty normal growing up.
That's awesome. What about you?
Well, I'm from not far from here. I went to Ainsworth School, which was junior high school now. At that time, it was a high school. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Flint Township. Okay. And over by the corner between Miller and Corona Road, I grew up on Utley Road. Gotcha. Went to Utley School. Gotcha. Until they combined it with the other schools and became the Ainsworth School District. Right. And I went to school at Ainsworth. And I thought that I lived in a pretty typical family at that time. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe what was typical wasn't a healthy environment.
Yeah, it's amazing what as a kid what you can consider normal, right?
Yeah, you know, everybody else is there, and most of us had fathers that had served in World War II. Right. I graduated in 1965. I'm a little older than Bob, although you look younger.
Just a tick, definitely. It's the hats, man. I'm telling you,
it's the hat. It's the hat. And so growing up in that, I think we had kind of a skewed view of life, and then what was normal, what was acceptable, what was healthy, and I grew up, and I wasn't a very happy kid.
Yeah,
I wasn't, and I was a lousy student, and came out and went to work for General Motors, which was the thing at that time. Right, everybody came out and got a job at General Motors. They were right. There were very few things that you needed, and where I went to work, you had to have a high school diploma, which I had, and a heartbeat. So, I was in. They were looking for workers.
They were looking deep into the crowd.
They were looking for workers, and I managed to slide in there and get a job. Yeah, which was good and which was bad too. Sure, because it really, I think, stunted my growth in a lot of ways. And I did go on and get the higher education. And Bob did too. We both are graduates of the University of Michigan here in Flint.
Oh boy!
And that was prior to me getting in recovery. And I think it was post recovery for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get all those stories for a minute, just so I can catch up on my side. When I was a kid, I grew up on Stewart and DuPont.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're all Flintstones here. I love that. And so my parents divorced when I was 7, and as I said, my mom struggled with drug addiction. And so once they got divorced, I mean, we were bouncing house to house to house every 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? That was my normal, like you were saying. Grew up not very happy. And then by the time I was 12, I was able to live with my dad and my stepmom, right? And he worked at GM, got out of high school. Your exact story. And moved to Davison with him. And had a, pretty normal childhood by then. And everything was just kind of, just moving along and what you consider normal, except for me, I went into the military right out of high school.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit different. But, getting those friends and being able to associate, I was always moving all the time. So you always got to have like a stick or a thing or so you can have friends because you never know when you're leaving, Can
I ask when you graduated from Davison?
Oh, so I actually went to a parochial school. I went to Faith Baptist in Davison. I graduated in 1994. And so when you said you graduated in 75, I was born in 76. So, and the beauty of our fight is that it's the same fight, right? So here we sit with some absolute knowledge in front of me, right? So I have every opportunity to pick on that knowledge and the things you've gone through and see how we can be helped now, struggles we had in the past, how we can move in the future, and we get to do that now. So, so now that we kind of had our backgrounds, we're all kind of from the same area, and a couple of graduates, we got into your graduation and got into work, and then so what happened? You just hanging out with your buddies, and like, what's the process there?
Well, I went away to college. I went to a little college up north called Kirtland Community College.
Okay.
It was out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, no.
And moved in with 8 other guys. I was 17 when I went up there. And
wow.
Everybody was a partier. I was I had partied. I went out on weekends with my friends, but never an all-day deal. And I'd smoked some pot and got sick on MD 2020 and stole my dad's Kesslers and did all the stuff the kids do, but I'd never lived away from home up until that point, and that was a real awakening for me. And I was pretty much a go along with the crowd kind of guy. I couldn't say no. And so I got caught up with all the peer pressure, and next thing you know, I was using to have fun, and then I was using to use. And then that started me on a roll that lasted till I was 33 and decided.
So how long do you think that process was that you went just to have a good time to like you had to do it? How long was that time period, do you think? Like you said, you started, 17, right?
Yeah, maybe to where I had to do it all, or I was obsessed with doing it.
Yeah.
I was probably mid to late 20s.
Okay, so it was almost a 10-year process. Then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so it became a habit, and that habit became a normality. That normality became an addiction.
That's a good way to put it. Very
okay,
good.
So
Very
what
good.
you considered to be your normal was the thing that sucked you in.
Became a lifestyle.
Because you didn't know, and you can't know what you didn't know. Like you knew you probably shouldn't do it, but I'll get out of it, right? It'll be all right. Being young in your 20s, you're invincible, right? Bulletproof.
When I got sober, there was a guy named Ernie Larson that wrote a book called Stage 2 Recovery. And in that book, he says, what you live, what you learn you practice, what you practice you become, and what you become may have consequences. So that was kind of like my story. I just had grown, after doing it for so long, I had grown into that, and what was fun now became a habit and a lifestyle, and then it's hard to break that. And I think that whatever you do, you get absorbed in.
Right.
If I get up every morning and brush my teeth with my right hand, I get absorbed with that. If I get up every morning and decide I'm going to work, I get absorbed in that. If I want to work out every day, I get absorbed in that. But bad habits are just as effective at taking control of your life as the good ones.
Right, and the outcome's just negative, both for you and the people around them. All right, so we're at high school. He went into a corn college, we'll call that, because there's nothing to do with party and corn, right? So where were you at after high school?
Well, a year after I graduated, I started attending what was at that time Flint Junior College.
Okay.
I'm going way back. And then it became GNC Community College and now Mott College.
Okay.
And I started attending classes there. we were experiencing a new world order that time.
Okay.
You know, we were
gotta
going to
explain
change
that.
the world.
Oh,
We were going to change the world and make everything right. And I was a fixer back then. I became head of this. It wasn't we didn't even think of a nonprofit, but an ad hoc group from the government, the student government there at Flint Junior College.
Gotcha.
Was going to change the world.
Right, of course.
And I got exposed to some things there. You know, this 65 was a year that changed. Things changed after that.
Right.
It was considered a benchmark.
Right.
And after that, of course, we were experiencing higher consciousness to various vehicles. But I never became addicted to substances. I was always addicted to people, places, and things.
Gotcha.
And I started in '66, but I never got a degree. I kept going on and on and on, and finally got a degree in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
Basically because of my codependency.
Right.
I just couldn't deal with life, and I kept going back to school and dropping out, and back to school and dropping out.
Gotcha.
And I party with a lot of people who use, but I didn't. I've never been drunk. I've been high, but I've never been drunk.
Right. So you were like party adjacent, basically. You just had to be around the crowd.
Yes, and
I call that the nouns.
Eventually, the addiction that overcame me was my addiction to other people.
Yeah, codependency will kill you, man.
And then in '86, I started to get into recovery. So we're kind of like different addictions, but the same disease, but approach it from a different way.
That's what I'm trying to explain to people is the reason why this is going to be beautiful. We're going to get in the next section here in just a second, is that yours is a little bit different, yours is a little bit different, mine's a little bit different, but the outcome is identical. And so when we come back, we're going to be talking about my issues and the car accident and side effects, and we'll be right back with that. You guys sit tight. People that are talking about breaking the rules use their fingers to speak to each other. And that's what gangs do to communicate from point A to point B. It's almost like this has been in the Bible for 2,000 years. And people feel like it's a new thing. That is unbelievable, isn't it? That things that are happening in your life today are in here from 2,000 years ago. That's very weird. Welcome back. We are here with Bob and Mike and from the Anons AA NA, and we were just finishing up with Mike's story, and I was going to regale. So we have one guy struggling with alcohol. We got one guy struggling with addiction with people on codependency, and my issue was I was in a car accident. Actually, the name of the injury is called horror fusion. Isn't that horrible? It sounds terrible, right? And basically what it means is your eyes work independently of each other. And so it creates vertigo and vomiting and migraines. And it took them 15 months to find it, right? So I had to go to a psychologist, and he was telling me about how I was making it up. And that was some of the darkest days of my life, because you have to question if you're going crazy, right? And so I get in there, and they finally tell me, I'm sorry, no one's ever lived past 20 years. I'd had a bunch of surgeries, like 4 or 5 surgeries, and the number one doctor in the United States was like, I'm only taking this because if it works, I'm getting published. And I was like, fair. He walks in. He's like, it didn't work. I'm sorry, your life is over, Mr. Walsh. And he turns out and shuts the door. I was 33, and I was just like, wow. Right? Like, what do you do now, right?
You are a survivor.
We all are, right? So our situations of how we got to where we're at is not really important. The question is what did we do after we get to those scenarios? So we each had a different path to the same spot. We got to a spot that we couldn't get out of, right? Life had dealt us a blow, whether it was self-inflicted or not, that put us in a situation beyond our capabilities of handling on our own, right? So this is where we're at. So Bob, back to you. So you were in college, you're dealing with the alcohol, dealing in the corn college, and now you're sitting in there, and what happens now?
Well, I partied myself out of college. I came home, got in the shop in 1977, got married young, had a couple kids young. Never really got the grasp of not partying. It just had become a way of life. The shop was a big party. Most of the people that I worked with partied. Lunchtime was a party. Breaks were a party.
So I heard that you have to be good at euchre and ping pong. Was that true?
Well, I wasn't a ping pong player, but I can play some euchre. I like cards for sure.
All right.
For sure. And I did that for a long time, and ended up getting a divorce, and then lived by myself and lived with somebody else for a while, and the party never quit. And then I'd gotten a DUI in the early 80s. And then in 1990, I got my last DUI, and I probably should have had 50 in between. You know, back in the day, you could get pulled over and let go. And there was a lot of enabling cops, I guess you could say, and I guess that was good and bad.
Right.
But finally, in 1990, I'd gotten caught for my second DUI, got convicted in 91, went in treatment in January of 91, and been sober since. Knock on wood.
Right. And so the treatment that you went into was AA.
I went into a residential facility, Insight Recovery Center on Eldon Baker. I did 30 days. When I first struggled with going in, I had an attorney named Shaker Bracken. He was kind of a dad type guy, excellent attorney. He's passed now, but I owed him a lot. I owe him a lot. And we were downtown at one of my hearings, and we were walking back to his office, and he said, "You know, Bob, maybe you got a problem. You just don't realize it." And I thought, you know, I don't want to listen to this. You know, my mother had told me that. My brothers had told me that. My ex-wife had told me that. I had friends and bosses, and you name it, had told me that. But I didn't want to listen to it. So after I left him, I started getting curious. Well, maybe he's right. Maybe I do have a problem. So I got curious. So I went to Insight and asked, you know, what it would take for me to get in and see. Yeah. So they said, well, you know, they made me go through all these questionnaires and fill out all these forms, and ended up going in treatment and was in there for 30 days. And during that 30 days, I had a therapist named John Kerr, who's dead but was a great therapist. And I'd say, "John, you think I'm an alcoholic?" He'd say, "Well, I don't know. Let's get out a list of different areas of your life." So he made this list, and on it was families, legal, financial, health, spiritual, work. Right. And every day for a week, he'd get out that list, and I'd add something new. And after a week, I didn't have to ask anymore. I'd answered my own question. All right, so we're going to stop you right there. So, and how old are you at this time?
33. 33. Okay, that's perfect. All right, so we were still working with you.
Same age as you.
Yeah, I know, right? I didn't want to say anything. So, all right, so now we're at your college, addicted to the people, codependency. What happened then?
Well, part of my education, listening to Bob, you know, I just wandered around for a long time without any direction. Right. And I had been married once. I married a woman who was older than me, and that was 66. And that did not work out because I was not a healthy person. she wasn't a healthy person either, or she wouldn't have been with my sick ass. You know.
Yeah, sure. It takes multiple. Take multiple personalities.
We got divorced.
Yeah.
And I thought that the solution to my problem, and I'm still going to school. I've been dropping in and out all this time because every time, like I go through a divorce, I drop out of school because I can't emotionally handle this.
Right.
I was an emotional wreck.
Right.
And so my thoughts were that the solution to my problem was to find the right person.
Oh, outstanding.
Right?
Keep looking.
Yeah. The
consummate fisherman.
And so I'm working at the gym, and I meet this very beautiful woman, beautiful and gracious woman, and we did get married and eventually had 4 kids.
Outstanding.
And I'm still going to school. And while I'm going to school, I become interested in what they call the substance abuse curriculum, SAT.
Okay.
You may have taken some of those classes too.
And you guys haven't met yet, right?
No.
Okay.
Oh no. Yeah, he's still behind me.
He's still behind.
So I at that time, so I'm doing this, taking classes on how to treat people with addiction, right? Mm-hmm. And I eventually end up doing a internship at Insight.
Ah, okay.
And so I'm taking these classes, and I take the classes, and they're talking about the dynamics of the relationship and how you diagnose somebody as being an alcoholic. And I start looking at it, and I'm saying, am I crazy? This looks a lot like my wife.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
So,
hey, babe, by the way.
Chuck Bailey was the head of that program at that one time, a great guy and a great friend. We were the same age.
Yeah.
And I went to him and said, Chuck, I know that this is a phenomenon that people hear about an illness and then they have it. Yeah. I said, but I'm looking at this and I think this is my wife. He said, well, you may be crazy. And I said, I am crazy, but she may still maybe have a problem.
You had to go home and have that conversation.
And so.
Can you imagine?
And I did try to have that conversation, and she was not willing to have that conversation.
I bet that did not go well.
And we did end up getting divorced. And that was part of my journey.
Right.
But starting into the journey, I went to see a therapist, a guy named John Ridgway, who was an expert in addiction areas. Mm-hmm. And he took out a book, and he says, I want you to... He wrote some time on it. It was a book of the meetings. Mm-hmm. He drew a map on it, said, I want you to be at this meeting at 8 o'clock tonight. And so I went to
And this was a NA or AA meeting?
No.
Just a meeting?
This is one of the on meetings.
Okay.
And so I went over there, and I talked to them, and I said, I've tried everything. And so they asked, what have you tried? And I told them. They said, none of that stuff works. And,
right.
Which I knew.
Right.
Because we'd had this, I've been trying to fix her for several years.
Right.
But then that's what started me into 12-step recovery.
Okay.
And then I did do an internship at Insight after that, like in 1990.
Okay, and you're how old at this time?
I'm 74.
No,
at that time, gee.
So 74, 22, 12.
It'd be about 42, I think.
Okay, so just a few years off. So you guys are now in the same facility area, getting ready to meet.
And anyway, that started me, and I went on from there, and I got 2 more degrees.
Wow. What are your degrees?
I got I have a BA in political science. Okay. I have a degree in electronics, and I have a degree in quality and reliability engineering, or quality technology.
Okay.
And this is important because later on when we meet, I go to Project Box as a consultant.
Yeah.
Because I want to bring in the same tools that I learned in the factory,
right,
and how to manage people and processes,
and
I want to apply it to addiction recovery and to the addiction process and getting people better.
All right, and how old are you now, right, Bob?
At that time?
No, right now. How
Oh,
old are
right
you?
now I'm 64.
64. So there's a 10-year difference.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I doing traumatic brain injury for me. Like when I got in there, I remember I went into. So I was about 33, and I remember my first meeting at Social Security Disability. I go in there, and the lady looks exactly like you would think, right? Gray hair, ponytail, big bow, half glasses with the chain, red nails, older white lady come in there. Now, mind you, at the time, I had a manager that was making all my appointments. I had so many doctor's appointments, I had no idea what was going on. And so I go and I sit down, and mind you, this is right after that doctor appointment I just told you about, just a little while ago. Doctor telling me, "I'm sorry, your life is over, Mr. Walsh." I actually had to console his assistant on my bad news. That was a gem.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So we're sitting in there, and she says, "Well, what do you need disability for?" And I said, "That's what we're in here for, disability?" I said, "I don't need disability. I'm out of here." She's like, "Wait a minute," because I started going for the door. Because once you get on disability, you're in big trouble as far as someone who wants to work, and I'm a want to work guy, right? And so I sit down, and she's like, "Let's go through the test." So I'm like, "Man, I'm gonna ace this thing, right?" And I'm telling you, the first question was, remember these three fruits, right? Apple, banana, and something. I can't even remember what the third one is, but I remember I'm trying to remember. I forget the whole rest of the test. I couldn't even tell you what any of the questions were. I was trying to remember those three stupid fruits, right? So we get done. The lady gets done. She gets up. She reaches over. She puts her hand out to shake my hand. And I was like, "What is that for?" She said, "In 27 years, no one's ever come in here and said they didn't want my money." She's like, "You're the reason why we have disability, right?" I went home and wept. Just wept, because it felt like they had taken my manhood away from me, my ability to take care of myself and my family. I mean, when we got a car accident, me and my wife and kids, we had been married for 2 years, right?
Ouch.
So her life, as far as normality, is over, right? So that's where I was sitting at about the same life spot. Like I was in that dark moment where you're reaching for any kind of help because you have no idea what you're doing, right? And the biggest lie we tell ourselves is we know what we're doing, we can get through this, but that's just not accurate, right? So we're going to take our next break, and when we get into this, we're going to get hopefully some funny stories from our guys, and if not, I got one for you, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. You guys sit tight.
I'm really impressed with the teachings that Isaac has been bringing to us, as this is all based from Proverbs.
I like it because it's simple, and it doesn't matter who you are. It's very easy to understand and apply to your life.
It points out, my bad parts, and, but it's showing me how to do the good parts. And, I'm trying to apply that and, make a better life for myself because I'm tired of where I've been.
It's impacted a lot of the guys as they continue to talk and ask questions after the meetings, as they speak to one another regarding the meeting and the messages and the topics that are being brought up, which are down-to-earth topics of situations and things that we live with on a day-to-day basis.
He takes the Bible and he breaks it down into simple terms and where you can understand. And like I said before, sometimes a lot of churches, even the Salvation Army, sometimes we start using these big words that people don't understand, like even saying someone got saved. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean when you say someone got saved? And it's accepting Jesus into your heart. So it's like words like that we use that people don't understand.
It's just very interesting how he points out, the different things of, the sin part, and then he comes back with the, how to make it better, and he just points it out. It's there. I didn't know all this stuff was in there, but now that he's pointing it out, it's like, wow, I guess if you really dig into the Bible, you find these things.
This is a daily moral standards that we can live by, that the teachings are coming from. And honestly, we can take verse by verse as what he's done, and pretty much he's done the hard work for us, and now laying it out so that we have an easier understanding.
There's some people who don't like to be in Bible classes, but this one seems to get their attention.
All right, welcome back to the Warriors Way in association with UCAN. I am Isaac, and I'm here with Bob and Mike, and we were just getting into some of our funny stories. And so, Bob, you said you weren't sure, so we're gonna kick it off to Mike. You got to have something going through all that just came out kind of funny through the difficult times. There had to be some interesting stories in there.
Oh yeah, I had a. My wife and I was always trying to convince her that she had a problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on this romantic second honeymoon.
Okay.
To down south to Kentucky and Tennessee. Anyway, on the way back, we're in the car. There's nothing else to do. We get in this horrendous argument.
Okay, and there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, we're just riding in this car together.
I'm just pissed.
And we're arguing, and it boils down to one word. What is the meaning of this one word? She said I said one thing. And I was claiming I said another.
Okay.
And it depended on the meaning of this one word.
Okay.
So we get to a place called Tip City, Ohio.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get off the expressway. I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I start down this road. And there's a little strip mall. And I thought, oh, wow, great. And then there's a little bookstore.
Oh, no.
There's a little bookstore in the strip mall.
Yeah.
So I pull right in. I pull right up in front of it and get out. Sure. I go in to buy a dictionary.
Absolutely.
Going in to buy a dictionary.
Yeah.
So I get in there and I go in. Is there you have dictionaries? And they said, yes, we do, of course, in the back. And so I go back. I grab the dictionary. I come to the front of the store. I'm standing there and ready to buy it. And I look out the front window and she's leaving. She's backed the car out. She's leaving. She's leaving me Tip City, Ohio.
She already knew. Oh no!
And so I came out. That was a lot younger than I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I came out, and she was driving to the exit, and I'm running across the parking lot, full speed.
Yeah, with the dictionary in hand.
And then in my head is going, is there some way that I can? Is there some way that I can get home? Is there buses around here? Can I rent a car? This is all going through my head. And she gets to the exit and she can't leave because there's somebody parked there, waiting to turn.
Yeah.
And so I get in the car and it's not a good scene. And,
did you at least tell her what the definition of the word was?
I did not get the dictionary. And the follow-up is that if people ask me what the word is, I say, well, what was the word? And I have
Can't you remember?
I have no recollection of what the word. I have what the argument was, what the word was.
But you remember the fight, right?
I remember running across the parking lot, scared that I would be left in Tip City, Ohio.
Yeah.
And somebody said, asked me one time, they said, what's the moral of the story? And I said, always carry a dictionary in the car.
That's right. Yeah, so you don't have to get out. Oh, I am actually crying. That was really funny.
So that was kind of typical.
Well, I got one for you. So, remember I told you I had a manager, case manager. Now, she wasn't from the insurance company. She was an independent case manager. She was making all my doctor's appointments, right? So in the first 15 months of the injury, they couldn't figure out what the injury was. And when they finally figured out what they call a unicorn, they have horses, which is a normal, this doctor is telling me this, and zebras are interesting, and unicorns are very specific and very rare, and they never look for unicorns or zebras. They're always looking for horses when it comes to a problem, right? I just happen to be a unicorn, right? So I'm going to all these doctors, and they tell me I have to go do this test. So I go down to U of M, and I walk into this room, and there's this chair, this black leather chair with these straps. And they're like, you got to sit in that. And I'm like, all right. And then what happens? They're like, well, we're going to spin you around. And then we're going to spin you around. I said, okay, I have issues with movement. And your idea is to spin me around. there's only one outcome, right? That's going to come out of this.
Oh, boy.
Right. If you've seen The Exorcist, you understand what's, oh, no, you'll be fine, Mr. Wallace. We're going to give you a bag. I was like, oh, a bag. That'll fix it. Right? So I go in there and they strap you up. And I'm nervous, right? So I'm sweating and I'm not thin. I'm chunky, and that's because I like chocolate. And so, and the chest part didn't quite get like clicked, right?
Yep.
So they go in there and all the lights shut off, right? Whew, it's completely black. And all of a sudden these white strobe lights come, right? And then they start spinning you. You have no way you're going. So, right? This way.
Oh, my God.
This
You're
way.
training to be an astronaut.
Oh, and then the doctor's like, now tell me which way the lights are going when you stop, right? I'm trying not to vomit. That is my main functional purpose. And so I'm sitting there, they're like, we want to track your eyes. And I'm like, if this is up to me to get correct, we're all going to fail. Because I'm just trying not to puke all over the stuff, right? So they stop you and they spin you, and then they got this tracer light, and they put this thing on there, and then they could notice the eyes weren't tracking properly, and I'm puking everywhere, right? So we finally get done, and the doctor comes in, and I had puke all over me, okay? And because you know how they tell you don't eat, you know, you have to only so it was just coffee coming out, right? Coffee and bile that was just coming out, right? And so I'm sitting there to get done, and the doctor walks in, and he goes, well, that was a successful run. And I remember looking at him and looking at myself and then looking at him, and I was like, your idea of success and my idea of success are two totally different things, right? And he was like, that's all right, we'll help you clean off, right? So I go to clean off, and I'm like, all right, fine, the day's done. He's like, no, we got one more test. And I'm like, I already cleaned up. You know, I'm already in the gown with the butt showing thing, right? So I go in there, and they have this thing from the ceiling down, and it's got these leg things, like for a giant baby, right? And they don't tell you what's going on. And basically, it looks like a living room. And so they strap you into this sucker, and what happens is the floor jostles.
Oh, boy.
To see how you react to that, right? But they don't tell you that's happening, right? So I just vomited all over myself. Get done. And he's like, are you ready? I'm like, for what? And as soon as I said for what, the door dipped, and I whop, face right in the wall, right? He's like, your response time's a little slow. I'm like, are you sure? Right? Because I have no idea what's going on. So I hit my face. I saw. So then we go through the second time, and he's like, you know, I feel like you did second time was better. I was like, well, yeah, because I realized the walls and the floor are going to be moving, so you know to react. I was like, when you're doing that, I was like, if you wanted to extract information from Al Qaeda people, this would be a good way to do it because I'm here to help you, you know. And it was just like some of those. I have a whole bunch of doctors, and God bless doctors for what they do, but some of those guys, like, their bedside manner is not very fun at all, right? So those are a couple of stories that we had to go through. And
I have a real quick story, Isaac.
All right, Bob, what do you got?
It's kind of serious and maybe a little funny, but it's a memorable experience.
All right, perfect.
Towards the end of my drinking, I was at the Argonaut Lounge, and that was usually my favorite bar to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I was in there with my favorite drinking buddy, a guy named Charlie. And we were sitting there, and we were about half in the bag, and it was deer season. We wanted to go deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we were going to go out to Joe's house and go deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And we're half in the bag, but we have all our stuff. We had intended to go right out to the woods, but we didn't. We stopped at the bar for one, and you know how that turns out.
Yeah.
So 2 hours later, we're going out to Joe's house, and I told Charlie, I says, well, just wait in the car right here, and I'm going to run in and tell Joe we're going to go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I went in the house, Joe was in tears. I said, Joe, you okay? What's the matter? He says, well, I've had this horse. It's my kid's horse, and I've got to put it down, and I just can't do it. And he's bawling.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, since you're going to let us hunt here, I'll put the horse down for you.
Okay.
So I walked back out, and Charlie's sitting in the car, and I said, you know, that son of a gun Joe won't let us hunt here. I'm going to shoot his freaking horse.
You did not.
Charlie's going, no. Come on, Bob, let's just go. I said, no.
Oh, no.
I got in the trunk. I'm getting my car. He's begging me, Bob, let's just go, please. Let's go right now, please. We'll go back to the bar. We'll have more beers. We'll have a great time. I says, no, I'm getting even with this guy. So I got my gun. I go in the barn. I shoot his horse. And while I'm in there,
he's losing it.
While I'm in there, I hear another shot. So I come on. I said, well, that's enough for that horse, and screw Joe.
Yeah.
He said, well, I said, what was that other shot, Charlie? He goes, well, if he's not going to let us hunt here, I shot his cow.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh, that's awesome.
No, it was only a joke.
On that note, that was amazing. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
I was an addict for 6 years. I was deeply into heroin and addiction. 2014, a lot of events happened for me. I had lost my sister. My dad was just diagnosed with cancer. I was just kind of in this headspace of being in a mess as it was, and then I was introduced to heroin. I kept it pretty well hidden there in the beginning. A lot of people didn't know that I was using just because I went about my everyday life the same way anybody else would. But what they didn't know behind the scenes is I was using 10 times a day. I'm living out of what I consider a trap house at this point. There's no windows, there's no doors, there's no place to stay warm. I had no other way of making money. I was doing things that weren't okay to me. I started prostituting. I was stealing from my loved ones. I was taking my dad's cancer prescriptions, and I would take them and I would sell them. I couldn't even contact my daughter in December of that year to tell her Merry Christmas or send her gifts. And it just got to a point where I knew, like, I'm either going to get clean or I might as well start planning my own funeral. So for me, it wasn't even just that I needed to stop. My life over the course of 6 years fell apart.
So I met Sarah in 2019. We had a program I was working with law enforcement officers, and I got the call that they had somebody, so there I went to meet Sarah.
Here's just this happy-go-lucky guy just, oh my God, here's treatment. Here's what you can do. You can change your life around. I'm just kind of sitting there like, oh, okay, what did I get myself into? Like, maybe sitting in a cell by myself might have been a better idea, because at least I don't have to listen to all this.
Whenever I see somebody who's willing to go to treatment to try and help with their issue, it's something that I don't make that judgment. I always just try and provide the hope, the encouragement, and the motivation to go to treatment, and then hope that it works for them, hope they engage, hope that it's the point of life that they're in, that they're ready to make that change.
It was a huge wake-up call for me when I'm watching all these people that I used to hang out with, including my husband, get clean before I did. And just watching their lives change so drastically and them becoming so much happier. And I just sat there in this endless abyss of a mess that I caused myself, but I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to stay clean. I didn't know how to live my life without substances because I had done it for so long.
With UCAN and our relationships we can actually get people into multiple treatment facilities. So depending on age, gender, the drug of choice, things of that nature, there's certain facilities that maybe have a little bit more of a success rate with certain populations. So we kind of talk through that and then try and place them where we feel is an optimal place to succeed.
My husband and I finally got a place together, and life has pretty much been good ever since, but like the key role of it for me was staying in contact with people.
We can't go in and drive in and grab somebody and just pull them out like they're drowning. It's a decision they have to make, and it's a commitment they have to make. and then they have to be diligent, determined, dedicated to find sobriety.
So my husband has 2 years clean, and I have 22 months clean. I will have 2 years clean on December 21st of this year. Just last month in October, we went back to court. Everything's officially terminated. She's back home with us for good.
Yeah, so UCAN is that conduit. A lot of times people don't know when to or how to or where to go to start looking for services. So we try and promote UCAN as being the starting point for people to begin the road to navigating recovery.
It is more than possible to change your life around.
So this program that we have allows law enforcement that if they have somebody that they feel could use the opportunity to try and get treatment instead of incarceration, that they would reach out and we could handle it for them.
Recovery is possible, and there is hope.
All right, welcome back to the Warriors Way with our buddies Bob and Mike here, and they're here to finish up their story. So we had finished up previously, looking for help for insight, and you guys were about to meet and being buddies. So after you went through the program, what happened after that?
Well, I was sober for a year or so, and I decided that I'd go back to school. Back to college, because I flunked out of college the first time. So I went to U of M Flint, and similar to Mike, I went back for substance abuse.
Hey, don't steal his story yet.
Got a bachelor's in social work and went back to Insight, just like Mike. And got a job and worked there for quite a few years. And getting a degree helped me. I was working in the shop, so that helped me get a job as an EAP. I love that job. I love helping people.
Yeah.
So that was right up my alley, and I got to finish out my career in GM in that respect. And during that time, we got to do a lot of fun things. We got to help chair the Soberfest for several years, give away food baskets.
And you guys are up to about 5,000 people coming up to that now every year. Did you know that?
It's gotten really big.
Yeah, that softball tournament.
It's a great way to get to meet people in the community, because a lot of times as an EAP, you're a referral source, but you never actually get to meet a lot of the people. So at the Soberfest, you'd have these planning meetings, and you'd have a big kickoff lunch, and then you'd have the event where you could actually put a face with the voice on the phone and get to know people and build relationships. So I love doing that. I still am pretty active in the in that
I'll still see you out there next to the tank freezing. We'll get there. All right, so that's his happy ending. He got into the Soberfest. We'll finish up with Partners for Recovery in a second.
Well, yeah, kind of left where I was doing an internship at
Insight.
At Insight.
Yep.
And at that point, I was divorced. My wife and I had become divorced. I think a lot of us in recovery have this fantasy we're going to become recovery coaches. But I went in there and I found out it was not my path. I did not want to do that.
Gotcha.
And so I went on, and then I got a degree in electronics because I worked at a place that was called Delco Electric, you know, electronics.
Yeah, makes sense.
And eventually I went on and I got I became a quality engineer.
Okay.
I got a master's degree in that discipline.
Outstanding. And
but I never lost my interest in course in recovery. I'm 35 years I've been in recovery.
Right.
And then I saw a way that it could be. I could combine those two. How do you do recovery better?
Yeah.
How do you treat people in a more effective manner?
Yeah.
And I approached. Bob was already on the board of this group, and I approached them, and I had to do like a thesis or some sort of a paper. They called it a project paper.
Okay.
And I asked him if I could work with the group and do that. And Tom McHale was the head of it, and he said yes. And they talked to the board. The board, voted to let me come in and do that.
Yeah, so, and now we're all working with UCAN, the United Community Addiction Network, which is great. So
I came in and did that, and
how did it finish with your wife?
Well, with the wife, we were divorced, but we were kind of not divorced. We kept over the years we kept coming back together, and finally after a few years, 15.
That's wonder.
I think we both have 3 or more. And she's been sober now 33 years. So so we were both in recovery, and at some point it became right for us to be back together.
And that was a bonding experience.
And it was. That led us back together.
Man, Mike, that is amazing. So, you guys each went through a situation not knowing what to do, got sidetracked by something. That thing won for a while. You fought back, you won, and now you're helping people that struggle with the same thing.
Yeah.
See, a lot of us struggle with things, and like with me, with traumatic brain injury, the biggest problem that people have is your personality resets in a way, and you have to grieve the loss of yourself, because that person doesn't exist anymore, and then you have to figure out, you have to let go of what you lost, and then you have to find what's new. And for me, this probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but like I lost a lot of my personality, and so I became very introverted. I was very outgoing before, and this is my way to be outgoing, like doing this stuff. But I got good at chess, like patterns and stuff. I got really good at, so I was able to pick up patterns, and so when people are struggling with something, you lose things, but you also gain things, and you have to look at that because you get so caught up with what you're losing. You miss the opportunity to be successful, like you two gentlemen. And now you take all this energy, and your group is called what, Bob?
Partners4Recovery. The 4 is the number 4.
Mm-hmm.
We have a website, partners4recovery.org.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Facebook page, Partners4Recovery, and we've had a ball doing it. I think that,
Yes.
Giving back is probably one of the best ways best things you can do to stay clean and sober.
Right.
I think I'm kind of a big book thumper, and in the big book it says that your chances of staying clean are far above anything else except for helping others. There's a whole chapter in the book, chapter 7, called Helping Others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Partners4Recovery is. We reach out to help people. When I retired, I was from the GM. I was asked if I wanted to volunteer for Genesee County Sobriety Court,
Mm-hmm.
and I did through Judge Haley, and I was on a team that helped the participants that were going through Genesee County Sobriety Court. We were a panel,
Right.
and everybody got to help make decisions to help those people out. Sometimes there was some consequences for the people, but I think for the most part, sobriety court, run now by Judge Hammond,
Mm-hmm.
is the way to go, really, in Genesee County,
Right.
to be able to have a new avenue in life to get clean, sober, change your life around, get involved with the community, and get your driver's license back.
Right, and so that list of partners that you have will be people that we're going to be having on this program. That list of people will be on our website as well with a link, so you can click, and if you want to help Bob out with the stuff he's doing with Partners4Recovery, just go to our website, spiritualwarfareunit.com, go to the right side, get the little lines, click on the struggling button, and it'll be right on there. So what do you got going right now, Mike?
Well, I'd just like to point out that a lot of the things that we did, including Soberfest,
Mm-hmm.
we participated in that. Of course, Bob was for years.
Right.
But we also did a tailgate party.
Mm-hmm.
We've had events for people to come from the treatment centers, and
Yeah.
to have an event that they can go to, a
Okay.
softball tournament.
Yeah, softball, yeah.
And then on the other, and besides that, we've also been handing out, giving materials to treatment facilities for the friends and families of these people.
Gotcha.
Because there's two sides of the
Sure,
disease.
absolutely.
He and I are a perfect example. I come from one discipline, he comes from the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see this disease as a two-part disease, and
Right.
we want to help treat both sides of that.
Right, and dealing with the disease, dealing with the family members, and our main function is to make sure the support is there. And so, having you guys as one of our partners in the community that we work with. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait for people to get this. And when they go to their website and they're struggling, they can go to spiritualwarfareunit.com. Get to UCAN, get to Partners for Recovery. I mean, even I remember you telling me, I was looking through there, even DUI lawyers and stuff, if they need them, right on there, right?
Well, we did a couple of fundraisers to be able to, one of our main goals is to be able to raise funds to get drug test and ETG test vouchers for Genesee County Sobriety Court participants.
Okay.
So when you're in sobriety court, you have to test your urine a couple times a week.
Yeah.
So that's pretty costly. It's about $20 a pop.
Mm.
You do that a couple times a week, it's pretty costly for a guy who may not be making the big bucks,
Sure.
starting his life over again. So we wrote a couple grants. We got some money to help those people out. We got some money to help for people to go to what they call ARM Weekend. And that's a weekend class. Accepting responsibility is mandatory. And so throughout that process, we needed more money to be able to help people out. So we put together a resource book. And in that resource book, it's got everything. It's got all the essential people that you need in town. It's got ambulance services if you overdose. It's got treatment centers, where to go. It's got attorneys. We felt like that it's got credit unions to help you get started all over again. We felt like the recovering community, or the recovering people in the United States, is probably one of the least marketed categories in the United States. When you're using all the time, you're giving your money to the drug dealer, to the probation officer, to the attorney. But when you're not, when you get clean, now you have money to buy cars and houses and fix your house up. And in the book, we have real estate people where you can go get a house, where you can get a loan for that house, handymen to fix up the house. So we've went from how you get sober, the things that can help you in the beginning, to full-fledged recovery things that people can access to find anybody. And it's got a list of all the AA and Al-Anon meetings in the book, and NA meetings.
And that's why I got to hold you, Bob, on this, because the whole function was to get the things that people need to live through this, the expectation of success, not failure. And so if you're struggling with this, like you say, you can go Partners for Recovery, you can go to spiritualwarfareunit.com. You can get the cuts on there. Is there any of the groups that you're working with that you'd like us to know about, other than what we've already talked about?
What I'd like to point out here is that what we're doing is based on good scientific research.
Right.
And this isn't just something that we thought might work. This is something based on people like the NIH, the Michigan Supreme Court. We know that people who go to sobriety and drug court are more likely to stay sober. I mean, it's a fact.
Right.
If they complete sobriety and drug court, they're even more likely to stay sober.
Right.
So what we're doing is trying to facilitate people to finish the drug court and the sobriety court.
Right, and that's why our support and letting them know we're the nonprofits for housing and food and clothing and baby formula and babies and all the other stuff that they would need in a one-stop shop. And I couldn't wait to get you guys on here. Mike, I'm really glad to have you on here. Bob, I'm so glad to see you, buddy. I love what you guys are doing. I appreciate it. If you're struggling with something and you need to take a look, you come to our website. You can check out Partners for Recovery. We're going to have that entire list on there. I just wanted people
PDF version of the book.
Yeah, absolutely, the PDF
absolutely.
version. But I wanted everybody to meet you first because you're just an excellent man, and I wanted to meet you, and I love your story, and I always enjoy hanging out. So we look forward. I appreciate you stopping into the Warriors Way, and we are going to see you next time. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.